Alright, so this is the fifth review, properties and changes. You have an example of properties in terms of the ice being solid, and you can see the water forming. So you can also look at, those are physical properties in terms of the melting point. But you also have an example of a physical change in terms of that phase change occurring. Over here, a chemical property is that the end of this match will ignite with oxygen, and a chemical change is obviously that the match is going to turn black by the time that the fire is complete and the combustion has occurred. So with physical and chemical changes, the physical changes can cause one or more of the physical properties to be changed, but they don't change the substance itself. It doesn't result in something new being formed with a totally different set of properties. So when when ice melts, it's still H2O. When water freezes, it's still H2O. If you tear a piece of paper, it still has the same properties that the paper did when it was intact. If you crush rock, you really haven't changed the rock. If you dissolve salt, you could evaporate the water and get the salt to be left behind. A chemical change, however, does result in something new being formed. So we see flammability here reacting with oxygen. When something catches on fire, you're not going to be able to get that initial object back. If you react something with an acid, if you add baking soda to an acid, you're not going to get the baking soda back in the form that it was before because it's been transformed into a salt that has neutralized the acid. So here are some examples of changes. Again, melting, any of our phase changes, boiling, condensing, freezing, subliming, depositing, those are all not going to result in the substance changing into something new, so that would be a physical change. Second example says iron combusts with oxygen to form rust, so it has made something new, a new chemical. Fe2O3, iron 3 oxide, is the most common form of rust, so that would be a chemical change. In example 3, we see here CO2 is in solid. Remember the S is the solid. We add heat to it, makes CO2 as a gas. So it's still CO2. This is the process of sublimation. We have not changed the carbon dioxide. This is dry ice vaporizing. So that too would be a physical change. Wood burning in air, we cannot get the wood back, so that would be a chemical change. Number 5, those of you who have had Mr. Copenhaver and myself, I know you saw it with me the first day of school. This is the elephant toothpaste, the hydrogen peroxide, breaking apart into water and oxygen along with heat. But I know we also showed it to you when we watched the video clips. So the hydrogen peroxide has been transformed into 2 simpler substances. So this would be a chemical change. And finally, in example 6, breaking a crystal apart into small pieces. It's still a crystal, it's just in simpler pieces, so that would be a physical change. The next part we're going to talk about are physical and chemical properties. Physical properties, again, are characteristics of the substance that they can change, but they don't result in the substance changing into something new. We already talked about density as an example. That density of ice is different than the density of water. And again, that's because of the different volumes that we see at the lower temperatures with ice as we do with the room temperature water. Other examples of physical properties, the odor, the color, volume, the form we find it in, conductivity, being able to conduct electricity, phase change temperature, melting or boiling point, malleability, being easily shaped, ductility, being drawn into a thin wire, solubility, how much can dissolve at a given temperature in a certain amount of water, and finally specific heat capacity, the amount of heat it takes to warm something up by 1 degree Celsius for every gram of that sample. Chemical properties are very, very similar to chemical changes. They result in the substance changing into something new with its own set of properties. So burning, rusting, digesting, growing, those are all examples of chemical properties. So the last part of this video is going to give you 4 examples of properties. Boiling point of an alcohol is 78 degrees. That's not going to result in the alcohol making something new. It's just going to change it from a liquid to a gas. So that is a physical property. Sugar fermenting to form alcohol. So we're making something new out of the sugar, something that has a totally different set of properties. So that would be a chemical property. A metal wire conducting an electric current. If you're able to conduct electric current, you don't change the metal wire. It's just allowing the electrons to move from one end to the other. So that would be a physical property. And finally, platinum does not react with oxygen at room temperature. The lack of a reaction telling you what it does and doesn't react with is also an example of a chemical property because you're showing what it would and wouldn't change with. So again, if we leave this and we go take a look at the summer assignment, you'll see that this will help you with number 16 in the review topic.